Mr. Chairman, Councilman Fernandez, and committee members, thank you so much. I definitely, I think we promised to be concise, short, and hopefully provide you with some relevant data in your deliberation. Speaking for myself as the Sheriff of Suffolk County, the largest sheriff's department in Massachusetts, and the 16th largest in the country, I'm proud to inform you that the Commonwealth's 14 sheriffs have been leading the way and contributing greatly to the shift from mass incarceration to effective rehabilitation and successful community reentry. For more than a decade, Massachusetts sheriffs have focused on addressing the behaviors that contribute to criminal offender conduct and engaging these offenders in programming and services that are designed to properly prepare inmates to return to their neighborhoods as residents who are far more capable of getting and keeping a job, acting as a responsible parent and an adult role model, and participating in constructive activities. The key to these successful initiatives have been the development and implementation of proven, successful programs and the willingness and incentive for inmates to actively engage with these services while incarcerated. Every sheriff will tell you that inmates who have participated in their respective programs recidivate at far lower levels than those inmates who do not participate. Which brings me to the issue of mandatory sentences, and for today's purposes, mandatory drug sentences. Speaking only for my department, but comfortably assuming the same is true for all of the sheriff's departments, I can unequivocally tell you that mandatory sentences are an absolute impediment to our effort to engage inmates in targeted rehabilitation and reentry programs. This is due to the statutory prohibitions that precluded individuals serving a mandatory sentence from earning good time off of their sentences and participating in pre-release work programs. These restrictions negate the obvious incentive for program participation. While some people might argue that we should not have to incite or incentivize participation for individuals serving time, it's my belief that we not only should, but that we must. The possibility of earning good time influences inmates to utilize our programs, and it's our programs that best prepares inmates to return to the communities throughout Suffolk County. And in turn, it's our programs that play an important role in addressing recidivism. I want to give you a brief illustration. Someone sentenced to a year, 365 days, under a mandatory minimum, they have to serve every single day of that sentence. That's a deterrent to them participating in programs. They can if they like, but they choose not to. You get up to 10 days off of the good time per month if you successfully complete the program. Additionally, these inmates will not participate in pre-release programs because under the mandatory guidelines, they must remain behind the walls. And so we see it as imperative to really look at mandatory minimum sentences. 85% or just about 85% of my population is there because of some involvement with drugs. 42% present with some form of mental illness, from the most passive to the most aggressive. So I believe that although there are those that should be incarcerated, there are also a fair amount that should be in a diversionary program, a substance abuse program, or a mental health bed, and not in a jail cell. I don't think that serves them the best they possibly could. I will go on to say that in 1971, President Nixon coined the phrase war on drugs. During that time, between that time and now, this country has spent nearly $1 trillion incarcerating low-level, non-violent offenders. So what happens? The country spends a tremendous amount of money, and families lose either mom or dad. And there's empirical data that speaks to the fact that when kids are being incarcerated are more likely to offend than kids whose parents have never been in jail. So let me I want to address your question about life at sea. Presently, we have 650 sentenced men. 113 of those men are there under mandatory minimum sentence. And not to belabor the issue, the disparity, when you look at the racial makeup, is outrageous. 87% of my inmate population serving mandates are either black or Latino. Something is deeply wrong with the way that we're doing this, and we ask that judges have more discretion in meeting out these sentences. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for taking us out of order, and I'll try to be brief. Sheriff Tompkins covered many of the points that I think all of us in corrections view this issue. He talked about 20% in Suffolk County that are mandatory. In Norfolk County, it's about 17-18% over the past 4 or 5 years, which is 1 out of 5 almost. It may not sound like a overly dramatic number, but those type of offenders, more than most, typically need re-entry programming in that approach in terms of intermediate sanctions than most of the other inmates. So many times these mandatory minimums tie our hands to help those offenders who need it the most. Re-entry has been really a goal and a shared vision amongst virtually all the sheriffs in the past, I'd say 10, 20 years. We have shifted many of our resources from inside those 4 walls right into the community, partnering with nonprofits in the areas of housing, mental health care, educational, substance abuse, all kinds of treatment in those areas. I know a number of us actually have recovery beds in the community, partnering with recovery homes so that we can put offenders on the bracelet, still under our care and custody technically, but one more step towards earning their freedom and learning how to live with all those choices that may have, bad choices that led to them offending in the first place. Earned good time, as the sheriff said, is really a big issue. If those folks or those offenders are mandatories are incentivated to do programming, then they're not easing into the community in a way that the other offenders hopefully are. Arguing with outside stakeholders who actually come to the jail, working with them individually, and making sure they earn those freedoms. For example, in Denham, the House of Correction, I'm the Norfolk County Sheriff. By the way, I'm Mike Lloyd, did I say that? Okay. Michael P. Lloyd, Norfolk County Sheriff. State rep for 6 years. As you know, we have a minimum security housing unit outside of the perimeter of the medium or maximum security facility. The offenders know they can earn their way to that setting by getting their GED, by dealing with anger management issues, by dealing with mental health issues, by dealing with vocational programs that might be a deficit. And then once they get there, they may end the community service. There's intense programming, which is continued. They work even more closely with community partners. But then they may end up in a bed, in a recovery home that we pay for, honestly, because we have shifted resources. There's a lot of talk about incarceration, and we are trying to put ourselves out of business, let's admit it. We want to see our counts low. We support these specialty courts. We support every diversionary aspect or component, whether it's through the DA's office, sheriff's, or the judiciary legislature. So, we are there, at least us three, and I'm sure a few others. We're buying into this concept. We want to make sure that offenders don't come back. But most importantly, we want to make sure that offenders, when they move back to my neighborhood, my mother's neighborhood, my brother's sister's neighborhood, my kid's neighborhood, that there's accountability, that they earn their way, that they just haven't been given $5 pushed out the back door without any programming or connection to the community. So, as sheriffs, I would say it's not extremely rare us being here and supporting this. But it's not only common. And I think it's more important that we're here than what anything else we can say today and telling you as public safety partners with other folks in law enforcement, we see the value of this. And I do speak, I won't say narrowly, but specifically to what it means to re-enter an offender into the community with ease, with step down, in mandatory minimums, tie our hands, and the correctional, House of Corrections, more than the state, with 1 out of 5, and those are the more higher risk. Thank you very much.